My name is Tom and I'm an alcoholic. In an effort to improve outreach to members in the armed services who may be struggling with an alcohol problem, we're collecting interviews from current AA members serving in the U.S. and Canadian Armed Forces to share the experience and strength and hope they have found in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Hi, I'm Ernie. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is the 30th of August of 2006. That's not my first sobriety date, but I always pray that it's my last. I've served in the Indiana Army National Guard for the last 20 years. I've deployed overseas 3 times and currently serve as a battery commander for a field artillery unit that is deployed overseas.
Was drinking a part of your decision to join the military?
So my drinking put me in a position where I was limited on choices. I barely graduated high school. The heat was on. I experienced legal trouble early on as a teenager. And I think my parents thought that if I were to join the military, it was like my white flag of surrender. It was my way of showing everyone that I'm going to do what it takes to make a change. And that's a pretty significant change, at least at the time. And I signed up for the Army just 6 weeks after 9/11. And I could tell you how much a patriot I was, but the truth was the heat had gotten so hot that I had to make a change. And so I joined the military really as a result of the effects of my drinking.
Did drinking play a part in any difficulties you may have had in your personal life or in your military career?
Oh, absolutely. So mercifully, my bottom was while I was still a part of the armed forces. And I say that because if it weren't for the military, I don't know that I would have been pushed in the right direction early on in recovery. I had drank myself into homelessness, and I was homeless for a little over a month, and I was still all the while a member of the National Guard. And so I missed some formations. Soldiers were dispatched to find me. I had no home, so I couldn't be found. And ultimately, when I was finally confronted because of my behavior, that was one of my first surrenders, was just being honest with my leadership about what was going on with me, my homelessness, my alcoholism, and my desire for a change. And I was met with grace. My first sergeant was on his civilian side, worked at a treatment center. I had no idea. He was a director of a treatment center. And at that time, his son was dying of alcoholism. And so he saw a willingness in me. He set me up with treatment, and my journey began, all with the military support.
What was your impression of AA before you got sober?
Well, my impression of the alcoholic was the dirty old man in the raincoat, right, in the alley, right? And when I was 19 years old. So when I came to AA meetings, and this was in the early 2000s, I did not see a lot of young people, just not at that particular meeting that I was at. And so when I was confronted with huge age gaps like that, it was very difficult for me at first to be able to identify, was this going to be for me? I also had some significant issues with the spiritual aspects of the program. And so those two things combined were aversions to me early on. I don't think I could identify with alcoholism for the first several weeks. Until an old timer sat me down. I'll never forget that. His name was Johnny. And he sat me down. He explained alcoholism in a way that I understood. And he showed me his coffee cup and he said, "Ernie, if there's alcohol in this cup, I'm not powerless over this alcohol." And I was more confused than ever. And he said, "But Ernie, once I take this alcohol into my body, I'm powerless over this alcohol." And it made sense for me. Every time I put alcohol in my body, something happened and I couldn't stop drinking. And I never understood what powerlessness was until an old timer sat me down and I was willing to listen. And so from that point, from that moment that somebody kind of took an interest in me and sat me down, that's when AA, I knew it was for me. And so early experiences there, really I was rocketed into a place where I could be useful for really the first time.
Have you experienced any other outside issues while in AA? And if so, how have you addressed them?
So when I was deployed overseas, I experienced several different combat-related experiences that I still live with today. But the fact is, I didn't want that to be my problem, right? So when I came back from from my deployment, I experienced acute symptoms of post-traumatic stress. And so I share this, with the guys that I sponsor. When I grew up in an alcoholic home, I saw and experienced things that I can never part with. They're always with me. And the truth is, in the military, that I saw and experienced things that will always be with me. I can't get it off, no matter how hard I try. And I think I thought that Alcoholics Anonymous could be my primary solution for everything that ailed me. And I realized very quickly that it could not be. And our book is very clear about seeking professional help when needed. Though I was very reluctant, probably for a couple of months before I ever actually sat down and talked with any clinical professional at all. And imagine that by the process of working the 12 steps, when you start talking about fear inventories and you start talking about resentments, it's amazing what a sponsor can pick out of what you're sharing with them, even though I wasn't sharing everything with them. I would experience manic episodes. I didn't realize that was trauma-induced mania. I didn't know even what that was. I couldn't describe it, and I would be in constant fear in my home. I never felt safe, and I would have a loaded gun beside me when I went to bed. And for some reason, we can normalize those feelings and those experiences. However, once I was fully honest with a sponsor through the inventory, he recognized that I needed more help than I was willing to seek. The VA meant well, but the VA would commonly try to prescribe me many things that I was not particularly interested in. And so I sought help through the Vet Center. And the Vet Center is a wonderful organization with licensed clinical professionals, combat veterans. And those guys saved my life. One guy in particular was a Vietnam veteran who saw it all, experienced it all. And he sat me down, and I got to just be honest with him in a way that I could never really be with my sponsor. Not at that level, and we cried and we worked through it. And as a result of that, I was able to get through that process a lot more gracefully, because I served with maybe a dozen soldiers over the last 20 years that have taken their life, and a lot of it due to combat-related illness, who didn't seek treatment, who sought the bottle instead. And I feel very lucky that Alcoholics Anonymous and good sponsorship pushed me in the direction that I needed to go in order to take care of those issues that maybe the home group or the sponsor couldn't help me with. For any service member that is currently suffering from alcoholism, they are not alone. The military has incredible programs and dedicated leadership that is there to help soldiers find the resources and the accesses that they need. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous, and thank God for the opportunities that I've had personally. As I sit here right now, I took a newcomer to an AA meeting just last night. I put up flyers, and I've had an opportunity to continue my levels of service here. I've made connections with the AA meetings that I'm going with downrange. Alcoholics Anonymous is accessible wherever you are, whether that's online or in person. And I've been grateful for the opportunity to be able to extend that support to the soldiers that I serve with, but also ensure just one more day of sobriety. And that's a gift.
Ernie, thank you for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us today.
The views and opinions expressed during this podcast are those of the individuals. No one person speaks for AA as a whole. For more information about AA, please visit our website at aa.org. To find a meeting near you or a meeting online, download the Meeting Guide app on your mobile device.